Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar AI Superprompts and the Anxious Generation for November 17th, 2025. My name is Wes Fryer, and I have the opportunity on a monthly basis to facilitate some webinars for our Media Ed Club for the Media Education Lab. But this session earlier this month in November was well received, and due to my own operator error, was not recorded. And so Renee and I talked and said, well, why don't we offer this again? So for those of you joining us live, please go ahead and let us know where you're from. It looks like we've got Christian from Brazil and Emily from Nashville. We've got Montenegro, Europe, Boston, Sao Paulo. Oh, Mariana, how fantastic you're here. So it's just great to have you all in the room. And this session, oh my goodness, really is one of those aha sessions for me, because knowing that what is being called an AI super prompt exists and then being able to use it and share it is just really a wonderful thing. There's all kinds of things, of course, we can say about AI, and there's all kinds of issues, but I think this is a definite good use case, and I'll be interested to hear your feedback. We're going to specifically focus on using Mike Caulfield's SIFT AI super prompt with Jonathan Haidt's claims from his book, The Anxious Generation. And so here's a little overview of what we're going to do. As you're already doing, please let us know in the chat where you are coming from. Yes, Mariana, we will record the session, so glad that you're here. And as we usually do for our sessions, there'll be a bit of an overview, and then we'll go to breakout rooms and invite everyone to use the tool and play around with it and explore with it. And then we'll come back and share and talk a little bit about what we discover. So if you want to put anything into the chat about your favorite AI tool, are you paying for an AI tool, subscribing to one? I know that I am starting to use Gemini Pro now, which is part of this Google One subscription that our family has because we have so much stuff in Google. But ChatGPT has been my primary tool. We're going to have some announcements, and then I'll give you a little bit of an overview of the claims that Haidt makes in The Anxious Generation, and then a little bit of the SIFT AI super prompt, and then we'll go to our breakout room. So I'll try not to spend too much time on this beginning part, but for those of you, actually, I can ask this in the chat, have you read The Anxious Generation, or have you heard a presentation or a video by Jonathan Haidt? He is a very well-known and recognized speaker and author on the topic of social media and its impact on teens, and makes some pretty strong claims. And I think they make a perfect use case for using a super prompt like this to kind of fact check. So if you want to access our collaborative notes, this is a shortened link that goes to a Google Doc. I put that into the chat, and I will paste it in here again. Feel free to go ahead and actually if you want to, you can add to the document. Is that for the slideshow? The slideshow has this link too. So this is the document, and it's just got all of our slides and descriptions, and in most cases links. We do archive these, and we'll be archiving this one as well. And so feel free. Make sure I've got the sharing set. Yes, you can go ahead during the session, and you can, if you want to add to those notes, feel free to do so. Announcements. So the first one I want to encourage is for you to use this Google form to share where you share. One of the best parts of being a part of the Media Education Lab, and here is the form link that I'll put into the chat. It's being able to connect with others, and in many cases, it's from around the world. And so this is a little form to just say, where do you share primarily, and where would you like to connect with others? I have created, and I've had this for a little while, a starter pack on Blue Sky. I find myself sharing a lot on Facebook, Mastodon, and Blue Sky. LinkedIn, some people are using quite a bit. Well, that's kind of interesting. Blue Sky has this thing called starter packs. I don't know what's going on. I'm at school, so sometimes we have some filtering going on. And anyway, it just allows a real fast way to be able to follow each other. So if you'd like to connect with others, please go ahead and fill out that form if you can. Have you noticed that ChatGPT 5 has this thinking model now? And so if you don't select for, intentionally, and you just have it set at default, it's going to be in auto mode. And so it will decide how long to think. But it has an instant answer and then the thinking answer. And what I would say in relation to our topic today is that results are really different if you don't choose the thinking model. Isn't that kind of funny to think about teaching our students and like asking them, well, what model what will you be in today? Let's just be on instant model and not really think, but no, let's do some thinking. There are big differences in sometimes how many minutes the model will actually work depending on your prompt. But anyway, that's just something that's happened here, I think, in about the last month or so. And it's so interesting, right, with the design of these large language models and the ways in which they're patterned uh, off of the human brain, and this idea that, hey, if it's not an instant answer, just like we would be, I guess, not to overly anthropomorphize this, because these are not human minds, but these models can actually produce much better results, much deeper results, much more nuanced results that, uh, frankly, can just be amazing when you choose the thinking model. So I would encourage you to choose that. In terms of announcements, we have another webinar coming up today called Media Biotope, and then coming next month on December 2nd, From Disinformation to Empowerment. You can get all of those events by going to Media Education Lab/events. And tonight's is going to focus on voice-based storytelling, bridging the gap between academic researchers and the public. Oh my gosh, I hope I can attend this, because I think explainers and influencers that can share both scientific research and other academic research are so important. It really is mind-blowing how different the information landscape is today. And so I'm excited to hopefully be able to tune in live, and if not, get the archive of that session. This is going to be on December 2nd, From Disinformation to Empowerment, in Belgium and Brazil, talking about fact-checking organizations moving beyond debunking to promoting media literacy. And we've got some Brazilians in the house right now today in our webinar, and it is really inspiring and practically helpful to learn more about what folks in other countries and other places are doing to promote media literacy and to try to increase the media literacy capabilities of general citizens, not just those of us in academia or in the classroom. So let's talk a little bit about the anxious generation and the super prompt. So Jonathan Haidt is the author of The Anxious Generation: How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. And I will share that recently our school participated with a number of other independent schools in hosting a Zoom webinar with Jonathan, and I watched the entire thing, which actually was a recorded video because of his schedule. But I was super, super interested in what he asked, especially parents, to do in terms of action steps following the webinar. And so I'm going to go ahead and show you the link to his website, anxiousgeneration.com, a couple pages. He's got a Take Action Parent page. Now, he's also got some pages that really talk a lot about the research. But in terms of action and what he is asking folks to do, he would like for basically parents to ask their administrators to not have cell phones in the hands of students until they're 16, and to do away with all digital devices in the classroom and school completely. And it seems a little bit like, kind of turn the clock back, to an earlier time before we had digital technologies. I'm thinking that he's also got a page, and let me see if it's in, I think it may be on his website. So Anxious Generation, I'm just going to Google his name, and then we'll go to his main website. He's got a pretty comprehensive uh, section on social media. So areas of research, social media. Here he's got a lot of the graphs and a lot of the data that he cites in his presentation and in his book. Basically, as someone who's earned a terminal degree and done a bunch of research, he clearly points out the causality, or sorry, he clearly points out the correlation between a lot of things that started happening around the time smartphones, entered the scene and social media entered the scene, but then all of these different real negative, real negative uh, trend lines with regard to anxiety and self-destructive behavior and suicide attempts and depression and all of these different things. So the prompt that we're going to use today is going to focus on these claims where Jonathan is, and he'll say these are 7 things that are correlated, and he really believes there is causation. He is asserting causation that social media, specifically via cell phones, has caused all of these things. And as researchers, we know there's a complex set of variables that is always at play in all kinds of things. And so I think this is real valuable to use this SIFT super prompt. So to try and briefly summarize, I attended in Rhode Island the Summer Institute in Digital Literacy back in 2019, had a chance to connect with some wonderful folks, including Brian Turnbaugh, who's pictured there in that photograph by the computer screen, who's a Chicago-based educator, started what has become a wonderful collaboration with Renee and many others at the MediaEdClub Lab. And yes, Marianne is putting into the chat, correlation does not equal causation. That is basic, but yet this is the claim that's being made to thousands and thousands of parents and all kinds of folks throughout society. He's an extremely influential author and speaker, and so this is something that deserves fact checking. It deserves sifting, basically. There is so much evidence, right, that there's all these different issues, but my background, basically being introduced to Mike Caulfield and the SIFT web literacy framework, goes back to this 2019 conference. And so Brian Turnbaugh and I started to think about lessons that we could do that would help students really learn about SIFT. We talked about the idea of the moon landings and this assertion that the moon landing was a hoax. At that time, YouTube was much more prone to rabbit holes. I know it still is, but it was really quote unquote easy to start asking was the moon landing a hoax, and then go right down a rabbit hole of all kinds of things leading to flat earth conspiracy theories and things like that. So that led to an inquiry project I've been doing ever since called Conspiracies and Culture Wars. I taught a couple mini courses for the MediaEdClub Lab called Teaching the Conspiracy Theories. And I'm excited this semester. I just started today because I teach middle school media literacy here in North Carolina. Just started this unit that I call Fruit Loop Conspiracy Theories. And we're going to use some AI tools. I have not used the super prompt with Flint AI, which is the school licensed AI platform that we have. But I'm excited to, maybe in a somewhat abbreviated way, bring this idea of the super prompt into my classroom, because as many of us know, when it comes to conspiracy theories and videos, there's so much information that's being shot at the viewer, or just presented to the viewer, and it's impossible to fact check it at speed as it's coming. But then even afterwards, it can just be really overwhelming. And I'm excited to basically have the super prompt as a tool in my toolkit as I am helping students hopefully learn to stop, investigate the source, find trusted coverage, and trace to the original, as SIFT encourages. So an additional background is back in June of 2023, I had an opportunity to go to the University of Washington, hopefully this audio is not on, and learn about digital or media literacy lessons from Finland. And we got to hear directly from Mike Caulfield, who is the author of the SIFT Web Literacy Framework, and through their Center for an Informed Public, really connect even more with educators and the academics and other teachers who are doing this kind of work. So on the link for today, we have a variety of different links, and let me just go to that really quick, and I'm going to encourage you to check out the direct link to the toolkit. So here's the events page, and here is today's session on AI Superprompts. And so for our media ed sessions, we will have some what we call recommended media. If you had a chance to take a look in advance, that's great. And then there's a lot of optional media. Some of these are the sources, for instance, that Jonathan Haidt references. So he references this youth risk behavior surveillance system and the data that came out of this report as far as trends and things like that. But the link I want to point to you right now, and I'm going to drop this into the chat, is on Mike Caulfield's, it's like a GitHub, it's a Gitea, and it's the toolbox. And so when I click on this, here is quote unquote the super prompt we're going to use. This is a 338 line prompt that we can copy and paste and put into our LLM. He recommends using the latest version of Claude. You can click the little download file and download the file that way. I opened it up in my text editor, BBEdit, that I have, and so I can just copy and paste this. Now, it's also possible to save this as a PDF and import this, or even just import it as text. One of the challenges with different AI models has been the context window and the size of the context window and how many things you can put in there at once. And so anyway, and he's also tested multiple models, but he's basically spent months and months developing this super prompt, and now we can use this super prompt and deploy this. So here's the too long did not read version, all right? An AI super prompt, and this one is about 3,000 words long, I think is an important thing to know about and to play with and to use and to basically, put it through its paces and see what kinds of results. This is not magic. This is not a silver bullet. There's all kinds of issues with AI platforms and hallucination, which is an anthropomorphic term, but the fabrication of facts and results, all these things are issues. But by using a very sophisticated prompt, and then in some cases too, feeding it these specific documents or the specific research or video transcripts or whatever that you want it to analyze, it can really, really be powerful. So that's kind of the quick version. So I encourage everybody to follow Mike Caulfield on Substack. He writes the Substack called The Ends of Argument, and his Substack is just Mike Caulfield at substack.com. I don't know how many of you are using Substack. In fact, if you are and you want to put your Substack into the chat, I find Substack today to be a fantastic news source. And he is updating all the time. Look, 2 hours ago, he just posted more walkthroughs, and this one has to do with chocolate memory. And so many of these are videos, and it really, when folks share like this, and they really are just allowing us to sort of see, what's their work right now, where are their ideas, just be able to come along with them on, their investigations and their academic and professional work. It's fantastic. And so anyway, that's just a strong recommendation to go ahead and follow him. This particular post, which he shared in May, was titled, "Yes, LLMs can be better at search than traditional search." And this is an actual, I'll put this into the chat. This is a post that you can do. This is a prompt that you can give today, questioning whether or not the Wizard of Oz in the snow scene used asbestos. Okay, and it's really fascinating to explore why that, what is the root of that? Why are folks saying that was asbestos? And then how do we get to some primary sources? And how do these AIs come up with their answers and a Google search come up with their answers? It's just an example of a real beneficial prompt. And I think that as media literacy teachers, these kinds of things can be great, not only for us to do, but to share with students and to try and investigate. So here are some suggested prompts, and the one I'm going to show you real quick, and then I'm going to invite we'll go into breakout rooms, and Catherine's going to help us with that, and basically invite somebody, if you're willing, to share your screen, and then give these prompts a choice. Upper right corner, was the snow in the original Wizard of Oz movie asbestos? That's one that Mike Caulfield has done. I've been focusing personally on different, diet questions and things related to health. I'm over 50, so what's the best diet for men over 50 who want to lose weight? That's not at all controversial is it with all the different health influencers and companies and people wanting to sell us things and get you on a particular supplement plan or diet plan or whatever. Supplementary hormones, the claim, hey, do women who use supplementary hormones get cancer? My wife is listening to podcasts and they've been talking about that issue. You can do the prompt that you want. The one that I'm going to model for you right now is this one, which says use the attached super prompt. Oops, I just skipped my slide. Use the attached super prompt to thoroughly check the claims in this book, The Anxious Generation, How the Great Rewiring of Childhood is Causing an Epidemic of Mental Illness. And then hardcover, it just copied that when I copied it. And so the way that you'll do this, and I've actually done this time in advance, you're going to want to hope that ChatGPT is going to open. Yay, good. That would be not a great thing if it didn't. So I would recommend either upload, like I've downloaded this prompt. You can upload the prompt itself as text. And I'm going to say, read the attached prompt and then wait for my question. So you can copy and paste it into the content window. Again, note that I'm using ChatGPT latest version, and then I'm using the 5.1 version, not the instant version. So it's going to take a little time for it to process the 3,000 words in this prompt. And then I will go ahead and paste in the question and have it go. And this may take a few minutes, and that's why I've gone ahead and done it now. So it says, got it, I've loaded it. Whenever you're ready, ask your question. So boom, I'm going to click it, and then it's going to sit here and think and churn away. This is so interesting, right? I could click answer now. Don't think, just answer now. But I'm going to let it think, and it's processing this. And so it's going to go through a fairly extensive set of steps. So let me show you what those results are. And then you can give these a try as well. Or like I said, feel free to try your own prompts if you want to. So it thought for 3 minutes and 42 seconds when I put this in, and it noted today. One of the things that Mike talks about that's important for these LLMs, especially doing some kind of contemporaneous search and research, is that like establish the day. What day is today? And anyway, he's got some JavaScript and some code in the prompt that establishes that. So it goes ahead and reconstructs the main thesis. That since 2010, a phone-based childhood has contributed to rising anxiety and depression. But the stronger version is it's the primary cause. All right. His assertion is the cell phone and social media are causal effects of youth mental illness, the rewiring of children's brains, and a number of different dynamics here. So it goes through a research strategy on search bias. It has a verified facts table. Again, these are all the results that ChatGPT 5.1 thinking, after almost 4 minutes of quote thinking or waiting, generated this verified facts table. It comes up with errors and corrections because it says, the statement, social media and smartphone use are the primary cause of the current epidemic of adolescent mental illness. And it says this is incorrect, overstated. High quality reviews, e.g. Ogers in Nature, conclude that evidence for a primary causal role is equivocal. Associations are generally small and inconsistent. Many other social economic factors, family stress, academics. It's multivariate, right? Okay, so anyway, this is the extensive result of the super prompt. So here's a correction summary. It gives me potential leads for things that I could continue to research and look into. It assesses the sources and their usefulness. It goes ahead and provides a revised summary that's corrected and contextualized, gives notes on the information environment, and then tip suggestion. That's the result, okay? I have gone ahead and put this into Claude. Now, I don't pay for Claude Pro, and so anyway, the results here are similar, and because this is what the super prompt specifically asked for, these kinds of tables, these kinds of evaluations, these kinds of ratings, using this kind of a framework. And then lastly, I did this in Gemini, and so interesting. It says I'm ready, central thesis. So similar, verified facts, errors and corrections. Anyway, those are our results. So our task is to have some time to play with this a little bit. So again, if you want to focus on height, go for it. But Catherine, if you can go ahead and take us into breakout rooms. We've got about 33 minutes remaining for our webinar. So I'm going to give us about 15 minutes in the breakout rooms. And there's about 20 of us here, along with probably some AI Otterbots and things. But we'll be in, four breakout rooms or whatever. It's a sign of the times, right? If you don't have some AI bots in your Zoom call, it must not be 2025. You're in a time machine or something. But anyway, we'll do about 15 minutes. Feel free to, have someone share the screen, talk with each other. I may bounce between the rooms, or if the conversation's right in my room, I may stay there. But this is our time to play with the tool, use the prompt that you want. And again, in the chat, the link that you're going for is this SIFT toolbox right here on this Giteas. So I'm going to drop that link in.
Great. I also just put the link in the chat to the slides if that's helpful to review the instructions. But otherwise, if we all know what we're doing, what the task at hand is, I will open the breakout rooms.
Awesome. Sounds good. And if you want to pause the recording, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes.
Initially, my thought was, since we are live, I left a couple of people in the main room.
Oh, okay.
So a couple of you might not get an invitation to go to a breakout room. However, Wes, if you'd rather us have some sort of blank time in the middle that we can cut out later.
Let's use this as a breakout room. That's a great idea. And that way folks that are streaming us live can have something to look at and hear about. That'll be fine.
Great.
Okay.
And I included you in that group, Wes, so that it's
okay. Yeah, that's
there's
great.
also some facilitation going on.
The thing to be aware of is normally we don't record breakout rooms. So if you stay in this main room, that will be recorded and shared. So let us
So
know.
if you'd like to put something in the chat saying you'd like to be in a different breakout rooms, that is totally fine.
Absolutely. So,
Mariana,
you got your hand raised. Go for it. Yes.
I have a question. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, first of all, great to see you.
Great to see you.
Really great topic. I played with it. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to leave. I'm sorry, I have a meeting. But I just wanted to get your quick take on the question I posed, because it's kind of irresistible to automate some of the work that we do in terms of media analysis.
Right.
At this point, right? And I've had one of my teacher students create a gem in Gemini to help finding ways to add a layer of media literacy that is embedded into the regular curriculum, right? So how can it be situated in your biology, geography class, whatnot? And I'm just, first of all, I was questioning whether sort of this takes away the learning that the teacher might have in constructing these activities, right? Because it's one thing if you have a teacher that starts out with a pretty solid knowledge of media literacy concepts and what it means to have a layer of media literacy situated in another area. And then she tried another version, based on my critique, she tried another version, which was sort of a more Socratic version, which sort of, leads the teacher by asking questions. And that one I thought was better. Yeah. So, I hear what you're saying about there just being too much for us to sift through, pun not intended, to fact check things. Right. But I'm just wondering if it doesn't take away some of the learning.
Well, this is why I started last year encouraging my students to use the AI tools as thinking partners, not cheating partners. Because I would see them just ask it to do the assignment versus like, look at what I've drafted or help me brainstorm ideas. And I think this is one of the big fears that everyone has, or that many people have about these tools, is that it will be a shortcut to thinking, and students may present ideas, or just whoever the person may present ideas as their own without thinking about them. Renee, the first session we did with this was also pointing out, because I said, oh, maybe we should teach this in our retirement communities. I mean, my father is in his mid-80s, and AI and how to use them. But Renee was cautious, like, these look so authoritative. Maybe we risk people just looking at this going, oh, here's the truth, right? Yep. And yes, we absolutely risk all kinds of things using these tools. And that's why I tried to preface this by saying, LLMs hallucinate. They will make stuff up. They need to be fact checked. So I think that this is very fraught with all kinds of risks. But I think that, well, my view is as an educator interested in literacy and communication, I need to be using these tools and playing with these tools to be able to be informed as I try to help my students, develop competency for today and tomorrow, basically.
Yeah, and the flip side of this is that, of course, Mike Caulfield is being very careful in the construction of this, because the
Yes.
tables and so on, they do add a layer of transparency about the process.
Yes. Oh,
Very
absolutely.
and educational.
Yes. Yes.
So, but there's both sides.
Absolutely. And that, the question for us as teachers, among many, is how do we construct assignments and projects and work for students that will be authentic, that will give us an authentic window into the thinking and mind of the student, and allow us hopefully to see growth and change. Jim, you've got your hand up. Would you like to ask a question or comment?
Yeah, definitely understand, like, yeah, we don't want the AI doing the work for the students, but doesn't that also apply to brainstorming? You know what I mean? Like
It can. It sure could.
that's something we need to learn. That when I was in school,
Definitely.
like being able to brainstorm, so then having this thing that
Yeah.
does it for me, I think again is just like
Yeah.
you're reducing critical thinking in students.
I don't know if you've played much with Conmigo, which is Khan Academy, Sal Khan's AI. I paid for it for a few months when it first came out, and we use, I said, this Flint AI. No, no paid promotion here, whatever. It's just this is the tool that my school licenses and we use. They're both set up with guardrails to try to make them more Socrative and more like a tutor, to not just give the answer, but it really, there's actually a slider on the activity that you create as a teacher where you can say how helpful do you want it to be or not. I mean, I was on a trip recently with some high school students who told me that they're not writing anything at home anymore. All their teachers are saying, do this writing in class. They're saying it's so much, these particular students were saying it's so much easier because we're just writing short things. It's all in class. And the implication is, that the teachers aren't trusting that they're doing the work themselves. And so some classrooms are responding in that way to say, let's just, let's handwrite everything and let's not use the tools. So I do think that we need brainstorming skills and we need all of these skills. But I am seeing certainly some benefit to having a more powerful tool in my fact-checking belt. Some people have also said these tools are not ready for students, right? And so it's sort of like a smartphone. We just hand in many cases, parents will just hand the full-blown phone, maybe even without any restrictions on it. Here you go. Wait a second. How old is that child? Wait, they're 10, they're 11. So it's a wild west, and these tools are far from being well vetted, and this idea of what's ready for the classroom, what's ready for students, there's wide disagreement on that.
So doesn't that, I mean, to me, that would preclude us from using these tools if they haven't been vetted, if they haven't been
Sure. Yeah.
checked.
I mean,
like, why are we putting them in the classroom?
well, one answer to that is that students are using them now. I'm thinking that this year may be the most difficult year to ever teach, because we've had this march of educational technology and information access, for my whole life, but we've never had AI overviews coming up for Google results and the types of tools at our fingertips. And many of our students, not all of them, but many of our students are using these tools. My friend Kevin Honeycutt used to say a lot that with social media, one of the reasons we need to use these tools are, kids are on the quote playground without adult supervision, and they need the adults around. So because these are being used in the environment, I would say, and this depends on your grade level and your content area and your context. For where I am today, teaching media literacy at a secondary level, I feel really that using these tools and helping students navigate these tools is an important part of what I need to do. But like I have not had this year, and we're almost done with the first semester, I've only had one or two lessons where we've used an AI tool explicitly, in the lesson. It's not the centerpiece of what we're doing, but I mean, so that's my answer. What do you think?
Well, I'm also reading studies where, for research papers, somebody will use AI, it'll make something up, they'll use that information, then it goes into a published research paper, and then it's being used in the future by AI as an actual source when it's
100%.
wrong.
100%.
So again, it's just regurgitating on top of itself. There's a lot of errors.
Oh,
So it
yeah.
just makes me really nervous. Like, my son is 8, but if this stuff was in his classroom, I would have him opt out. I would encourage other parents to have them opt out. This is just not ready. It's too powerful of a tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like, listen, I
Sure.
am not anti-tech. I love technology, but you have to like there are think about like I'm a video editor. So going from cutting film to using digital editing, right? That's some people would say that that's a problem. But you have something that is so powerful that can just like do whatever you want, whether it's make an entire video, whether it's write an entire paper, whether
Yeah.
it's create an entire song, that it's like
Sure.
unless we are super careful with this stuff and vetting it properly, to
Yeah.
put it
Yeah.
in the hands of children is to me very dangerous.
To be clear, I mean, we don't allow and have students just use commercial AI platforms in school. Like we're not in my particular context, we have a extensive AI policy, and Flint AI is the platform that we're using, and it tracks everything the students do, and we can have these conversations. And so we're not just like free for all. Hey, kids, let's just all use AI today to do our work. I don't know if you're familiar with the Civics of Technology group. We've mentioned them before in the webinar, but their conference they had this summer was very much on the page that you're talking about today with the keynote speakers they had. I mean, and it was really advocating a opt out of AI, that it's in the perspective of some of the participants and presenters was that AI use for multiple reasons, from a resource consumption standpoint to validity and truth and all, it's not ready for prime time. We should be opting out entirely of using it. An example of how I've used it this year, which I think was helpful, is I teach a web design class, and my students create 30-second advertisements, audio advertisements, about either a real product or a fictitious product. And so I had them come up with an idea with a partner. And then if they wanted to, and this is from that Civics of Tech, to your point about opting out, I realized I think I ought to give my students the opportunity to opt out, because it may be something that either they or their parents don't want them to do. And if that's the case, I think that's fine. But if they wanted to, they could use this AI activity, which I created, that helped them create a script. And this is a 30-second script. So in that particular context, I mean, I'm not teaching English and writing. I'm teaching web design, and I'm teaching podcasting. We're talking about the media literacy aspects of all this. It did allow my students to go from idea to script much quicker, and they were working on the skills, which I was really wanting to teach, which is, rather than Audacity, we were using a web-based platform called Wavacity. But, they were recording, they were looking at waveforms, they were, putting together different clips. We were finding bumpers and, sound effects and things like that. And so if we hadn't used the tool, they might have needed a day or two of class to be able to get their script together. So that was an example of where I think that helped us move to a script and be able to do that faster. But I think your position is very valid, and it's something that we need to be thinking about. But to me, it's just not binary, like AI, yes or no. Like, how are you using it, and are you setting up an activity? And to me, it's so important to be able to have conversations about it and to have some visibility into how they're using
Yeah, no, definitely conversations are important, but I would also come back and say like, okay, well, taking an extra day or two to write a script. I mean, when I was younger, you got to try all of that stuff, right? So then I discovered, maybe not at first, but over time that I actually really enjoyed writing. But if I didn't
it.
have that opportunity, if I was like, oh, I just want to make a podcast, write me a script, well,
Yeah,
then I wouldn't have had that opportunity to learn and figure out like, oh, I like this other thing, this
to-
other aspect of creating it.
totally. Yeah. I mean, I have 56 sessions with my kids that are 50 minutes each, and I have to decide how to allocate that. And this is a challenge of designing lessons: is how do we want to use this class time? What do I want you to be creating here? And in some cases, do I want to kind of jumpstart you a little bit with a template? It's like we do our oral history projects. I kind of give them a worksheet, a template that they can start filling in their questions with. I don't just have them open a blank Google Doc. But no, it's totally valuable. Mariana, and then Catherine, if you want to give a little warning to everybody, maybe 3 more minutes, we can come on back at about 1:45. Mariana, go ahead.
I should have left 5 minutes ago, but this is just too interesting. And I just wanted to react to Jim, because I am very sensitive to what he's saying. But then again, if we don't teach the good use, they're using it anyway. So it's a situation that's very similar to social media and cell phones. We can't not mediate their entrance into this world. And the worst thing to me that can happen is it's the sort of unacknowledged use, or sort of the hidden use, to cheat or to do something or to have a companion or something. So what we can do is to make sure that any contact that they're going to have with AI, I'm working on something like that right now for a school system here in Brazil. And they're allowing AI to be used in their teaching and learning activities, but with very transparent contracts between teachers and students about when and how and what parts of the activity. But also, anybody in that school system is going to have to go through mandatory AI literacy training. And it discusses the ethics, the dangers, the possibilities, and how do machines learn, and what's at risk and what's at stake there.
I love that. I think that is fantastic. And but I don't know how familiar you are with American school systems.
Yeah.
There's no budget for that. There's no, I live outside of the second largest school district in the entire country, LAUSD. And they don't implement that. There are no classes like that. There is no media literacy. So they're giving the kids these tools without any of that background. That you're right, Mariana. They like having that discussion and teaching them that stuff 100%, right? Because that does prepare them for what's happening. But just handing them these tools without that education, again, is incredibly dangerous.
You're absolutely right. And it is a difficulty. And of course, I'm talking about a private school system. And that's why we go back to traditional media literacy. And we say, look, it's situated. You have to teach it as literacy from the get-go, from the early years, all through schooling, as a lens, and situated in the context. Leon Furs, the Australian educator, he says, teach it where it matters. Teach it in your history class, in your biology class, in your math class. Find the opportunities.
Yes.
And then it's not a matter of budget. It's a matter of a shared responsibility. You don't have to have a separate subject for that.
But who's teaching those teachers how to incorporate them? Because you're right, it can't just be like one class even, or just like it has to be incorporated into the entire curriculum. But again, who is setting that up for those teachers to be able to teach that way?
Jim, I think you'll find a lot of folks in this community resonating with your perspective and really wanting these conversations to be mainstreamed throughout education, right? Because many of us believe that literacy is a big thing that we are trying to learn and teach. And so whether you happen to be a history teacher or an English teacher or a web design teacher, these are conversations that we all need. And that's why we're here. This community exists for many reasons, but one of them is to encourage and empower and support teachers around the world to do exactly what you're saying. And there are budget constraints and all of this, but I mean, one of the things I've been so encouraged by in this community is the English teachers, right? And the ways in which, through NCTM and different organizations are really trying to look at multimedia texts and look at analyzing not just the essay and the novel, but moving beyond. So thank you all for joining us. I hope you had a good discussion in your breakout. And the good news is we've got about 14 minutes to do some sharing. So what happened in your breakout room? If you want to raise your hand, if you want to grab the mic, we're a relatively small group. But go ahead, Daniela.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, it's wonderful to see you.
Nice to see you too. So I was with another Brazilian, Dani, in our breakout room, and Emily. And we were wondering if we need to upload more material so that the AI tool can effectively use the super prompt.
Yeah.
I'm asking you this because we've tried. Okay, we we embedded the super prompt, and then we were question things like we want to analyze claims saying that COVID vaccines are not safe, for
Right.
example.
Sure.
And it was not working properly. So we were feeling that we should feed the AI with a specific database.
Were you using, what model were you using? Were you using ChatGPT and the thinking model, or which model were you using for the AI that you plugged this
I
into?
don't know, Emily.
I think
I can tell.
it
Go
was the
ahead.
model we were using. I think
Thinking one. Yeah.
it's Chat GPT, but it was an internal model
Yeah.
through my work.
Okay. Yeah. It makes a huge difference if it's on that instant model or if it's on the thinking model. And again, this is something that just I noticed this in the last month. So trying different models. To your point, Daniela, I mean, one of my favorite tools is now Notebook LM. Notebook
Mhm.
LM, I've been using it for over a year. We did a session on it. I think it was one of our first sessions back in October of whatever, a year or so ago when I started facilitating these. But it makes you build a library of the documents, of the research. And so you're saying, take these documents, and then I want you to make an audio summary, or I want you to answer this question. Now, let me point out copyright comes into this, which is very important because we have different licensed uses of materials. My friend Miguel Gulen, who writes for the Texas Computer Education Agency, wrote a TechNotes article about this recently, as far as being aware, that uploading things to LLMs, could violate licensing and terms of service and things like that. So here's how I'll couch that. Let's say you're using an open text that is out of copyright and you're able to upload that entire work. I have definitely found remarkable results when I provide a full text. And sometimes I do this with a video transcript too, right? There's good transcription tools to be able to grab and sometimes it's a generated transcript. But when you give it those materials, you can have better results. I have had very positive results, which I was showing you, using the thinking model of ChatGPT 5.1, using the pro version of Gemini, which I license, but just using the basic whatever the version of Claude that just comes up by default. So that's a great question. Are you thinking that, were you all only within ChatGPT for your experiments?
Yes, we didn't have time to test
Oh,
other.
that's okay. That's okay. Did anybody test another model besides ChatGPT, or anybody else want to kind of share what happened in your room or what you talked about? Because we ended up here in this main room, we sort of ended up, we can have a little review of kind of what we talked about. Be bold and courageous. Grab the microphone. Yes, go ahead, Danny.
Yes, I am sorry. I don't know if you talk about this before, but does this prompt work in the free version of the ChatGPT? Because I have the impression that we tried before and then it didn't work either downloading or copy and pasting.
So Mike Caulfield, when he's written this up, he explicitly says, don't use it in free versions, use it in pro versions. And he says the Claude pro version is the best. So now that was the last time his prompt was updated was what it says 5 months ago. These models are always changing. And so, they've come out with 5.1 thinking. I have found them to be I found the Claude result to be comparable to the ChatGPT 5.1 result. But this is also just a good thing to know, right? Results really matter. Which model are you using? How are you prompting it? In many cases, when I'm hearing people be very dismissive of AI, oh, it's terrible for coding, oh, it's just horrible. I mean, sometimes I think those prompts may not, I don't know how much time they're spending with the tool, iterating with the prompt and which model they're using. And so, I find myself in an engagement like this, spending a long time going back and forth. What this prompt does, which is both good and bad. I mean, on the good side, it really does. If you read the prompt itself, it does give us a lot of insight into what a professional fact checker like Mike Caulfield does. How does he look at primary sources? How do you, sort of prioritize different voices? And so that's good. But on the other hand, boy, it's a huge shortcut. Be, and so there's a trade-off there that, you're not necessarily, you can just plug the prompt in without reading the prompt and really have no idea what you're asking. And there is definite value in prompting it yourself. But I mean, this is part of the challenge. Google did this with their search, right? I don't know if you're old, how many are old enough to remember Yahoo search, right? This category search, right? Or the Alta Vista search engine, but Google is just the omnibar, that's it. You're like, wow, that's not very nuanced, but it was to be very approachable and anybody can type whatever they want. And I think that's what many of these designers of the chatbots are trying to do as well, is make it very approachable. But yet that probably means a lot of folks are not going to be very nuanced in their queries, in their prompting. And so that's where the super prompt kind of goes to the opposite extreme. Here's this really sophisticated fact-checking prompt, which you may not, and I might not either, fully understand all the nuance of. Yeah, so but it definitely matters what tool you're using. Let's get some other comments and questions from others in different rooms. We got about 7 or 8 minutes left. Please grab the mic. Be bold. And by the way, Danny, where are you coming from? I know Danielle I assume, Danielle, you're in Brazil today. Are you in Sao Paulo? Yes, yeah. Danny, where are you from?
Yeah, I'm from Brazil
You are
as
too?
well.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, but I live in San Francisco, California, but right now I'm in Brazil. So
awesome. Isn't it? It's
yeah.
just, it
was a coincidence.
Yes. Let's hear from some others. Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Nancy Singh. We were in the fourth group, and I'm the one who was struggling with. I think I'm having the same problem as the first person did. First of all, I didn't have the ChatGPT tool, quickly accessible to me. I had to go sign in and stuff like that because I normally use Gemini as well. So I tried to then, I got the whole text of the prompt in.
Right.
I put that in, and then it was looking for what I was talking about. So we had to go find something. I went to Ethan Malick's One Useful Thing newsletter and his most recent analysis of all the tools, which was before 5.0 was, or 5.1 was announced by ChatGPT. I just got to that and I just pasted it in, and that seemed to generate parts of usage to using the prompt, but it gave me a list of things that it could not do. And it said it could do a part of them or not. So could you just quickly summarize the steps? Do I load ChatGPT first?
Log into ChatGPT
first.
And preferably the
second, I go find something, a URL or whatever. What were the things
get
I
the
could
prompt?
look
Yeah,
for
get the prompt next. So that's
the prompt next.
Get the prompt next. So you're either pasting or uploading the prompt. Then you're going to provide your question. And because what you're doing with the prompt is you're preloading the framework to say, this is how I want you to analyze what I'm about to tell you or ask you. So you load the prompt, copying and pasting from
or put it in a PDF and upload it
as a PDF or a text.
Got it.
Yep, upload it. Then put it in your prompt, and it should. And there are additional queries that are programmed into the prompt that you can ask it, like read the room and some other things. I have some links, I think, in the resources of watching Mike Caulfield present about this and demonstrate this. And so, and of course, he's the best person to be able to talk about it because he's designed it. But that would be the process. Load the prompt.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. I think I got it.
And it's kind of like software. It's kind of like software. You're sort of loading the program that you want the LLM to run, and then you're going to give it the question that you want it to analyze. So Emily's saying in the chat she was able to get it working with the free version of Claude. That's good. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again, and we'll going to need to wrap up, but we'll see if we got a few other things that folks want to share. This is a link from Tom's guide a few weeks ago, October 21st, called 7 Prompts I Use for Every AI Chatbot, and they work for almost everything. Again, being able to have tools for prompting is really useful. Sometimes I'll just start a new conversation, but evidently you can just say, "Hey, forget everything. Let me start over. Explain it like you're me. Argue with me," asking the chatbot to do that. Detect my bias. When I've written something or I've been putting in information, describe the picture you can't see. Give me 3 versions. He was saying, give me a safe version, a bold version, and a weird version. Show your work. Tell me where you're getting this information, these resources. Rewind my prompt. So I'll put this into the chat as well. But I think building our toolkits for how we're going to be prompting these AI, tools, and of course also just keeping a very critical eye that these are large language models. These are we're not dealing with sentient humans, but boy, we are dealing with algorithms that have ingested a vastly greater quantity of content than as our mere human minds we're going to be able to do. And so I personally think in some ways they've exceeded human capacity. I'm not going to be ingesting all of Wikipedia or, it's just crazy to think about how much they have that they've been able to ingest. But anybody want to share something else from your chat room, another question? And maybe we should actually kind of summarize. Is Jim still here? Jim, do you want to kind of summarize just what we were talking about in the main room as we had the breakout time? How would you summarize our conversation? I'm putting on.
Yeah, that's a good question,
I'll do
Wes.
it if you want to. I'll do it if you want to.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Well, Jim was raising really good questions about using these AI tools, especially with young children. He has an 8-year-old, and the fact that, it's great to brainstorm yourself. It's great to write a script yourself, being able to shortcut some of these procedures, maybe creating shortcuts for the learning. And one of the things I said that I've heard, certainly from the Civics of Technology group, which is another media literacy organization, their summer conference, was we should give maybe kids an opportunity to opt out. Do you have to use the AI tool? I do think, and Mariana Oakes was in our room talking about this too, the kids are using these tools now, right? And so depending upon age and grade level and context, the ways in which we use these tools and whether we do use these tools in our lessons is going to vary. But certainly my hope for you this session, and as we continue to move forward together, is that growing in our awareness of what kinds of tools are available to use, having some specific prompts and specific lessons. I've never thought about the snow in the Wizard of Oz scene. I've seen the Wizard of Oz before in the colorized version, but I didn't know that was a thing. But being able to have some different prompts to investigate, and I guess maybe I'll kind of conclude with this. I did speech and debate for 4 years in college, and we have 3 children, and 2 of our children did competitive debate in high school. And one of them a little bit in college. But I was so amazed, but also inspired by the fact that, and this was just a few years ago, these kids would hand each other flash drives with all their evidence and with their laptops. We had to work really hard to get evidence on pieces of paper and cards. But the thing is, what could you do with it? Could you use an argument? Could you hear in cross-examination somebody question your contention or your point? And could you use the information and demonstrate your ability to understand and to respond? And I just always emerge from, helping judge and whatever at these tournaments with a lot of encouraged hope for the future for these kids who were dealing with a wealth of information and issues and complex things, but they were navigating it and using the information, and they were, they were demonstrating their ability to understand and communicate. And so I think there's so many challenges that we face in the classroom today with assessment, with the ways that these tools can shortcut thinking and shortcut work, but there's also great opportunity. So I think we need to cut it short there. So thank you all so much. I want to encourage you to continue to stay connected with the Media Education Lab and join us. Normally, we're doing Media Ed webinars the first Monday of each month, and that's at noon Eastern time, and whatever that happens to be in your time zone. Thanks to Catherine for being our facilitator today. I think this was a live stream.